Welcome to Elegance in Every Step. I'm your maitre d', Mary Postlethwaite. We hope you've come famished. We've prepared the finest table just for you. Our special today is Hungry, a dish we've been perfecting for 21 seasons now. Your table is alongside another guest. It might feel a bit unusual. However, we encourage you to dive in and hear their story. Today, we're serving up a conversation about craving the right things in life. Sit back, enjoy a complimentary appetizer. Your host, Neil Matthews, will be along shortly to guide you through today's meal. Bon appetit.
Yes, Sally Murphy leading us into today's episode. Welcome in. Hope you found your seat right next to the waterfall, right next to the ambiance. By the way, what is the best place you've ever eaten a meal at? Got me thinking about that today as we get into a new story, a new adventure. I was thinking about that actually on the way into the studio. I think the one for me that still stands out, I don't know how it happened. I didn't pay anything extra. I didn't do anything, extravagant to make this happen. But my wife and I were in San Francisco many years ago now. I should just start every story with that. Many years ago in a galaxy far, far away. Just happened to be in San Francisco on a youth trip, actually. Our youth kids are out shopping, doing their thing at the pier. And I said, hey, they have one of those Forrest Gump restaurants. I want to go there. So we did. And lo and behold, we get in there just as the sun is setting. And they put us against the window. And all you can see is the San Francisco Bay and the sun is setting. And we are at the center table. And we had an amazing meal together. It's amazing to me the power of a meal can have on someone. It's amazing what happens when you break bread with someone, that you really can dig a little deeper. I think nowadays it feels like there are some people that we don't want at our table. We're not welcoming them into our table. Maybe that's a time for another discussion, or perhaps maybe it may come up today. We never know what is in store for us. But I do know this. We do have a young man that I'm really excited to sit with. Came to us from a past guest, and his name is Sean. And we met Sean through Mike. And so I feel like we have these series of little events now that are starting to feel like dominoes that are falling one by one. But help me welcome in my new friend, Wes. Wes, how are you today?
Man, I'm doing okay. I just told you off the mic that I'm battling this basketball injury. All in all, man, I'm happy to be here.
There are some things we shouldn't do anymore.
No, and I'm learning at the ripe age of 27, I can't play basketball with 18-year-olds and 21-year-olds, and my butt is sore right now.
I stick with middle schoolers. I feel like my game is far superior when I play against middle schoolers. So just a little helpful tip. Just that's me as an older to you as a younger.
I might even go as low as elementary school. Middle school.
Why not? Yeah. A middle school Shaq would probably still dominate on us, by the way. Just saying.
I know. So I'm iced up right now. I got my heating pad in the back of me. So I'm trying to hold it all together, but I'm happy to be here.
We're happy you're here as well, Wes. So thanks so much for joining us. Well, Wes, help us with this as we get going and lead off today. What size shoes do you wear?
Ooh, I'm a size, all right, in basketball shoes or in like dress shoes?
That's up to you. You get to decide that.
I'm a size 11.5 in basketball shoes. However, I like it a little smaller only because I like my sneaker to really hug my foot. I wear these old Kyries. They're these like almost like Kyrie. I'm not sure what model they are. Back when he was signed to Nike, I know. I love the shoes. They feel like ballerina slippers to me. They're a size like 10. They're tight on my feet, but they feel so light as a feather.
Well, that just took away my next question, which is what style or brand do you like? But that's fine. So help me with this, knowing that you can see the background, knowing that you can see the logo that perhaps is just over my heart. I had a friend at this place that I worked called Lithia Body and Paint, and we're big shoe guys. Like, he loves to buy shoes. I also like to buy shoes. And he says, hey, Neil, guess what? At Ross, they have Kyrie shoes. You should go get some. They're $40.
You're not wrong.
Wes, do you think I went and bought them? Asking for a friend. Not me, but a friend.
No, I don't think you did.
No.
I don't think you did. No. I don't think you did at all.
No, I didn't. Nope, I didn't. We have a local Dick's Sporting Goods here. And my wife and I were walking through one day, and she's like, look at those ugly shoes. And I was like, yeah, that's Jason Tatum's shoes. They're pretty ugly. She goes, you should get them. They're kind of and I'm like, no. They're by Jason Tatum. She goes, who's that? And I was like, he played it. And she goes, never mind. And she kept walking.
She already knew. She already knew.
She knew.
I'm sorry.
That's
And
what-
I feel bad because a lot of my favorite ball players are from Duke. Kyrie. I'm sorry. I know I didn't even know. I had no idea. So
Nobody told you?
No one told me about the boo background. I feel like I'm in enemy territory. I'm not a Duke fan. They just so happened to come from that place. I grew up watching Coach K. I grew up watching Kyrie. I know. I feel like the more I'm just saying.
How can you say you grew up watching Kyrie? He played 8 games. 8 freaking games for them. 8. That's it.
I should say I grew up watching his highlight tapes of the 8 games.
There weren't many. He played 8 games. People are like, oh, he's this great player in college. He played 8 games.
But he did some damage, though, in the NBA. He did some damage.
Okay. What has he done? Has he played a full season yet? Somebody research, get on that. I don't think he has.
I know. I feel bad right now. He's out with the ACL.
Listen, I never want a guy to get hurt.
Right.
But that cat, that is a hairless cat right there. That is a cat I'm like, I don't get Kyrie. All right, my Kyrie hate is over. So you love the Kyries. All right. Well, that's great. Leading into this, we talked to you a while back through Sean. And we were trying to line up our schedules, and you're busy, and you said something so curiously interesting to me. Yes, I just made up a word, curiosity. It's my show. I can do that. It spoke to my curiosity. I didn't even know it would. So I start writing these questions for our little intake form that we send to folks. And it says, true or false? If respect is no longer served, it's time to leave the table. Why? Do you remember what you wrote? I mean, it's been a minute. I know, probably.
It's been a minute. Remind me, because I want to make sure that I can address
I'm going to try not to butcher what you said because it was good. So bear with me. It says, I am a firm believer of going where you are celebrated and respected, opposed to being seated and being tolerated. When you are tolerated and seated, you may be seen but not heard. Every human being has a deep desire to be heard and understood. We sometimes stay in an environment, a relationship, and maybe even forms of employment that we know make us feel underappreciated. Because anytime it's different, that is the unknown, which scares the crap out of people. I like that too, by the way. This is the part that got me. Because we secretly are serving disrespect to ourselves. How can we leave a table if we are the only one who set it in the first place?
Yeah.
So what I took from that, this is what I interpreted that as. And I could be way off base here. Took that as, sometimes and I'll make it an I statement because I like it when it's an I, not a we, because maybe it doesn't fit everyone. Maybe like those Kyries, those don't fit me, right? Those don't. They don't. I mean, the 10 ain't definitely going to fit me. I'm not a little kid or a middle schooler. But anyway, not that you are. I'm not saying that. I might be. The thing for me is when I hear that and I read that, I think I've sat myself at a table that I thought I wanted. I thought I wanted this great opportunity. I thought I wanted to sit with such and such. I thought I wanted this moment. And then when I get in there, I'm like, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't like it anymore. But I've somehow sold it to myself that, no, this is what you've always wanted. This is the thing, whatever it may be, that you've always wanted. And then I get there and I'm like, this is not for me. But I stay and I endure and I stay and I endure. And then over time, I'm like, no, now it's really time to get up and go. Now, how does that fit for you?
Yeah, I actually, when I was reading that answer and even hearing it back, thank you for reading it back to me, and even hearing a bit about your story, what I thought about was when I was in a relationship in college. Equate that and compare that answer to that experience, because when I was in college, I'm a straight guy, you want to obviously be in a relationship. And you think that's going to give you everything, right? From like validation to sex to everything, all the things that a college guy would want. I got into it. It turned out to be very toxic, which led to be very abusive as well. I stayed in it for so long because I felt like this is what I wanted. This is what I thought every guy wanted. You wanted a relationship. You wanted a person who was going to validate you and celebrate you and do all of these things. And of course, there's this bad behavior over here, but I'll tolerate this. So let me just stay here. And when I got out of it, I realized I stayed because for so long, I didn't have the ability to really give those things to myself. What I always say is it took me leaving a toxic, abusive relationship to realize I was always in a toxic, abusive relationship with myself. And that's why I say that. It's like, I don't necessarily blame myself for staying in there, but however, I take some level of responsibility for understanding that I didn't tell myself those things. In fact, I was relying on someone else to tell it to me because I didn't know how. After leaving that relationship, opened my mind of setting a new table, giving myself that agency of understanding I don't have to just tolerate these things that don't make me feel good. I can really set a new table where now I'm in the most healthiest place of my life. I'm about to get married next year. I'm so excited for it. It took me learning that I have the sense of control, agency to create a new table where I am celebrated, not tolerated, where I am heard and seen. That starts the foundation of how can I learn to hear and see myself.
See, the problem I run into for me, it's this idea that I'm very vocal.
Right.
I think the word even some have thrown at me or put on me, you're a verbal processor.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay. So what that means is I have to hear it. And then I'm like, oh, and sometimes I might say it because I'm hearing it. I'm like, nope, don't like how that sounds. So I'll try again. Nope, don't. And my daughter noticed it. She said, Dad, you say sometimes the same thing 3 times, but 3 different ways. I was like, nope, didn't know that. What happens is because I'm so vocal and very, again, outspoken, some would even say, and very transparent in that. What you see is what you get. I'm not a good hider of my feelings. They're right here on that left shoulder, maybe even right here on that right shoulder. The whole idea is then people take that vulnerability that sometimes I'll share, and then they start to tease me on it because they think we're in a relationship, and then they can tease me on it because, that's what we do. We clown each other, especially as guys, right? We clown each other. But there are sometimes it hurts because I'm like, nope, you don't have permission. Nobody signed your permission slip to do that to me. Mom left that at home for you. It wasn't pinned to your hoodie. She left that at home. She forgot to sign it. You don't have permission.
Right.
And I learned a thing in sales a number of years ago. Earn the right. You haven't earned the right with me. You haven't sat with the table with me to be able to do these things. And so the challenge that I run into is this true of you that maybe others haven't earned the right with you? Tell me about that if that fits.
Yeah, it fits. It's interesting because I feel like I'm in a season of my life where I'm learning that now. And how I summarize it is not everyone is privy to your vulnerability. In my field of work as a professional mental health public speaker, I find myself traveling all around the country, and I'm doing, whether it's podcasts like this, whether it's speaking on stages or going to conferences, you meet a bunch of people. I don't mean that egotistically. I just mean that that's the reality of the job. And I had to realize that I'm on stage being incredibly vulnerable, sharing deep parts of my mental health journey with total strangers. And as someone who has ADHD, who tends to overshare sometimes, I've been burned, right? I've been in positions where I've had friendships who have used things that I've told them in a space of confidence against me. And I had to learn how to create boundaries. It's such a skill I'm still learning. That's why it's so interesting you brought this up. It's very hard because my natural tendency is I want to please people. I want to share to build those connections and build that friendship. Then I realize that some people have their own agendas and they will take that and they will weaponize it. It's such a hard lesson to learn in life. It really, really is. But I extend a level of gratitude towards it. What now I'm learning is, okay, everyone's not your friend. Everyone's not your friend. And as someone like me who's very personable, I like meeting new people, I have to understand, okay, is this the right time to open up about my trauma? Or could this just be a regular conversation? And that's okay. I used to think that me expressing my honest thoughts all the time was how I would build these very genuine relationships. That's not always the case. It does take some discernment, but it takes time to build that. And I'm still learning now, still in the space where I'm trying to figure it out.
Well, what have you figured out so far on the journey of doing that, of recognizing just because they're at the table doesn't mean they have the same type of privilege? And I'm using privilege very loosely, by the way, not in the privilege
of course.
We think, of course.
Feel like in my personal life, when they're at my table, because I've actually learned this lesson with family. And I'm originally from Boston, Massachusetts, and I grew up the youngest of 3. So I have 2 older siblings. My older sister is 10 years older than me. My older brother is 7 years older than me. And my parents first got divorced when I was 12. From the time I was 12 and they first got divorced, and because of the big age gap between me and my older siblings, I felt like in my family, I bore the blunt of my parents' relationship challenges. And that's what it was. From the time I was 12 to the time I was around 26. Yeah, so 14 years, I really would like stay in Boston where I was from. And from that point, my parents, they were obviously at my table. They were literally, they gave birth to me. They were at my table. However, though, one thing I had to realize is you can love people from afar. And me moving to Dallas, Texas wasn't to run away from my family. It was very much an example of setting my own table. And I had to realize that distance does not mean I don't want to love you. Distance means I need to finally choose me. And that was one of the first examples of my life where, I mean, I went to college like 30 minutes from my childhood home. I lived in my first apartment, probably about an hour away from my mom. So I was always close. And I think that was unhealthy for me. And I had to realize that, yes, my parents could be seated at my table, but they don't have to be, quote unquote, next to me. They can be at my long table and I could be 3,000 miles away and we could talk, once a week on the phone. That's what I've learned, is that you can love people from afar, and distance does not mean you don't love them any less. It just means that you are finally choosing your own table and your own seat.
Well, I appreciate the vulnerability there. You talked about previously, just a moment ago, about toxic relationships, hard relationships, and you talked about mental health and being on a stage and being this, maybe you know Matt Foley, maybe you don't. He was pretty famous for being a motivational speaker. He lived in a van down by the river. I'm making a joke of Chris Farley, but maybe you don't know that skit yet. If you don't, you should go watch it. It's funny. My point is that what leads you to the stage? Guessing you didn't wake up at Boston U and think, okay, here I go. I'm going to be the next Tony Robbins. I'm going to be the next motivational guy. I'm going to help this next generation understand these mental health issues. By the way, being a kid in the 80s, I don't think we knew what mental health was. For the record, not trying to be funny, but truly for the record, I don't think we knew what ADD was. I don't think we knew what ADHD was. I didn't even hear the word autism truly until probably, I'm going to put it around a 10-year mark for me that I probably heard that word for the first time. I literally, when someone shared that with me, oh, my son has autism, I was like, hi, what is that? I didn't know. I didn't know, truly. And these people that now have celiacs and they can't have, gluten and all, I'm like, what is going on with our world? Like, this does not look familiar to me. And again, I'm trying to be a little bit funny, but a little bit serious. I never knew what any of this stuff was. And I like to think of myself as kind of somewhat educated, but it was like, it seemed like every other day something was coming out. And then I'm hearing more and more about teens committing suicide and having suicidal thoughts. My daughter lost a classmate this last year to suicide. He was only a sophomore. So a 10th grader. Because sometimes people hear sophomore and they're like, what was that? I don't know that one. That's a 10th grade. And to me, it's like, what is going on in our world? So I know I asked a lot there, but how did you get to the stage and what made you maybe want to get to the stage?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for even sharing that with me, Neil. That you bring up a lot. And whenever I get asked the question, I have it's really a two-sided answer. When I was younger, my mom grew up watching the Oprah Winfrey Show. Every day at 4:00 Eastern Standard Time, she would rush home to watch this Black woman on screen. And I remember I had this basketball hoop. So we had this family room. I had this basketball hoop, like a little Nerf basketball hoop hung up on the door. So I would constantly, pretend I'm like Michael Jordan or Kyrie Irving or that's not kidding. I'm kidding. But I pretend I'm like, I'm like Mike doing all these crazy moves. And in the background, she's watching Oprah Winfrey. Now, I grew up constantly telling myself, I want to be like her. I want that. I want to be the next Oprah Winfrey. And now, fun fact, we actually share the same birthday, Oprah and I. And I was like, whoa. Also, a fun fact, we both got started speaking, learning how to do the art of public speaking in church, which was true. Also, a fun fact, she also was on the speech and debate team in high school. So was I. It's all these parallels. I get to age 24, I have a realization after constantly, at this point, I'm a professional public speaker. We'll get to my second answer. Breakthrough. I didn't want to become the next Oprah. I wanted my mom to look at me the way she looked at Oprah. That was a big breakthrough for me. And I was like, whoa, that was the reality of what I really wanted. I wanted my mom to validate me the way that she was obsessed with Oprah. That's a whole deep layered conversation. For me, I always had this thought of, I wanted to work for myself. My dad, he was a corporate America executive, and I always saw him having a boss, and he was never in the home. So I didn't want that. At the age of 21, when I was in that abusive relationship, and I got out about a year after that. So I'm 22 at that point. I was hospitalized. I had thoughts of taking my own life, have always struggled with social anxiety and depression. After my ex got arrested, it was like my whole world just shattered. Everything I thought to be true was just gone. I'm thinking to myself, as a man, as a survivor of domestic violence, I'm like, who's going to believe me? Police got involved, my parents. I'm thinking to myself, they're going to see me as some bad son. I'm not going to be loved. So I thought the world would be a lot better place if I'm not here. So at the lowest point of my life, I ended up calling the National Suicide Hotline. That saved my life. And then I went back to my therapist who I was seeing at the time, and I told her about the suicidal thoughts, and I was sent to a hospital program. In this program, I'm 22 years old, and I'm learning all of these things. I'm learning about coping skills. Like you, I had no idea what neurodiversity was or ADHD. I mean, I heard of ADD and ADHD, but I didn't really know what it really was. And I didn't know I had it. So I'm learning all of these things, and I'm 22. And I'm like, yo, where the hell was this in second grade? Like, what? Where was this in middle school when I was being bullied? Where was this in high school? Shoot, where was this my first day of college? Why do I have to be suicidal to learn this stuff? That's what started this. I was like, I want to share what I'm learning. I had this green folder they gave me in the hospital, and they would give us all these worksheets. And I remember looking at all these worksheets. I'm like, I was studying them. Like, I'm a bad student, but like in this program, I'm like, this is fascinating. Learning how to manage your need or desire for procrastination. What does that actually mean for the brain? What are you trying to avoid? Learning how to challenge negative core beliefs. All these things I wish I learned earlier. I started to journal because I'm a copious note taker. I leave the hospital March 13th, 2020. That's the beginning of the pandemic. I go back home and I turn that journal, which then became my first book. I Have Anxiety, So What? And what started that at that point was I just had this innate desire. I wanted to share what I learned because I had friends of mine who were suicidal. I had friends of mine who had died by suicide. I had friends of mine who had depression and anxiety who were younger than me. And I wanted to share this information with them. So that's what really kind of started this idea of wanting to help one student not feel the way that I did. Ashamed, alone, embarrassed, lack of confidence when it comes to talk about anxiety and mental health at large. And that's what we started. And now for the last 2 years, 10,000 students plus later, I've been loving it, every single minute of it. Of course, it comes with its lows too. That's why. That's my why. If I can help one student understand what I learned in that hospital program, that's what I do.
I appreciate you sharing that. When you look back on coming out of that, you called it domestic violence situation, domestic experience, that domestic relationship, what would be maybe 4 words your past self needed to hear?
Wow. It's not your fault. It's not your fault.
Why those words?
Why those words? Because if you think about my story, right, back to my parents' divorce, I thought it was my fault. Back when my team would lose a game in basketball as a point guard, it's my fault. I was so used to taking on the burden for things that had nothing to do with me. I was so used to that. And when I got out of the abusive relationship, I was thinking it was my fault. Like literally, I'm staring this police officer in the face and gives me these forms to sign. And in the other room, I could hear them putting the cuffs on her wrist. And in my head, my first thought was, how can I bail her out? Like I want to fix this because it's my fault. I have to fix this. And that was my natural instinct. I want to fix this. Looking back now, I had to go to that program to stabilize myself because even in that program, I was still trying to fix the situation. Now I had been in court. I had gone through the whole court proceedings. Like I'm going from class to the program to the courtroom. Like it was very messy back then, but that's what I would tell myself. It's not I'll be so used to taking on the burden and the blunt and the responsibility for all those things.
Again, going back to our table because it's easy. Yeah. It's hungry, right? It's this idea that, again, we're at this table together. Maybe people are hearing our conversation in the restaurant. They're eavesdropping a little bit. That's what Allie Murphy tried to set up for us, set the table for us, is that people are now hearing this conversation while we're in a restaurant type setting. I don't know. I'm an imaginative person, okay? I don't even know if imaginative is a word, but I'm using it. It's great that you could say, hey, it's not your fault. That's awesome. Those are powerful words, by the way. But I'm going to push on that if we're going to use the word friend. I call it the F word often. And people are like, what? You're using the F word now? Yeah, we are. We're using the F word. It's called friends. For friends right now, I venture to guess you've actually said different words to yourself.
Yeah.
It is your fault.
Yes, I have.
Why did you continue to eat those words of, it is my fault?
Yeah. Because it was familiar. And that goes back to that table situation. You kind of stay in the known. It's easy to sit next to the enemy that you know than the enemy that you don't. As someone who I'm a believer of I'm a Christian myself. And you think about the story of the Last Supper. Before Jesus was going to be crucified, he knew his traitor was amongst them. He knew that Judas was right there. And he knew that one of his best friends or disciples, whatever, was going to betray him. I think about that often. I feel like had I known the situation was going to end the way it did, and I'm talking about the relationship, would I have left? I knew. I could see the toxicity. I could see that it wasn't going, like, we were not going to the altar. We weren't going to be married. I could see that off rip when things got bad. I think I stayed because it was a lot easier to stay than to leave and be alone and bear the brunt of being alone. That was hard. That was really hard to really understand. Even right now saying that, that's just like mind blowing for me. I think I ate those words though because it was familiar though, Neil. It was familiar to me. When I felt like I was stuck in that position of eating those words, I realized that A, it was familiar. B, it was easier to like say those words as opposed to understanding and actually believing the other words. It's not my fault.
You mentioned the enemy at the table. There's a great and talented speaker, Louis Giglio. He wrote a book called The Enemy at the Table. And he has this great talk. You might want to go check it out. He actually brings a whole table of all kinds of food with him and all kinds of stuff. And he has this great kind of back and forth, like he pretends himself and then he pretends like he's the enemy, maybe a demonic, like getting into the demonic voices and whatnot. But it's an amazing talk. And maybe that inspired me a little bit in this regard. Listen, I think one of the hardest things in life to really do is to stand in front of the mirror, looking myself in said mirror and say, you matter. You're important. Your voice does bring comfort and healing through the power of Jesus. You are somebody and you are loved. Because let's face it, some days I don't feel loved. I don't feel seen. I don't feel always respected. And I grew up, again, in the 80s, early 90s, when in 4th grade, somebody said to me, listen, Neil, you have dyslexia. I'm like, I don't even know what that is. I can't even spell that word. Good thing it's not on a spelling test. For me, knowing full well that people would see me differently, look at me differently. I had to go to different classrooms to learn from my friends, and it was weird and awkward. And, they were doing these things and I was doing these things. There was the blue group and the purple group. There was always this division of me throughout life that I just see the world differently than everyone else does. And I've been told that. Well, you just see it differently. The hard part is I think sometimes people don't want to look in the mirror or face the mirror because the mirror is sometimes looking back at them. The enemy is themselves. It's maybe a little dark and hopefully not too dark. Have you ever imagined or let your imagination run around crazy and allow yourself to think, if I wasn't here, this doesn't happen?
Yeah, even more so. I'm a very imaginative person. When I was actually in 7th grade, writing assignment by my English teacher, Mrs. Moore. And I'll never forget it. We had to write these poems in these little composition notebook. And I wrote this journal entry called Mirror. And it was like, when you look in the mirror, do you see you or do you really see you? And that has never left my brain. When I would look in the mirror, I used to hate what I saw. I know most of us can relate to that. When I was 12, I was diagnosed with vitiligo. So it's this rare skin disease that disrupts the pigmentation of your skin. So I have it on my fingertips and my face. So it makes me literally half white, half black. All of these kids would kind of call me these names. And like you, Neil, I was in special needs too. I remember they told me I couldn't read, write, speech impediment, all this stuff. The labels, words that I was always called when I was a kid, I took them as truth. And it made the mirror that I looked at and the reflection I looked at so hard to see. How would anyone want to be with someone who's stupid, who can't read, who can't write, who stutters? And these are things I'm telling myself based on what other people have told me. Going back to your question, I'm thinking, yeah, if the spots weren't here, then this wouldn't happen. If I was just a normal kid in the classroom, this wouldn't happen. If I had never even talked to that girl at that college party, I wouldn't have these thoughts of not wanting to be here. However, the reality is, these things that we deem as failures are features. That's what I couldn't believe. These things that we demonize as I can't read, I can't write, my skin doesn't look uniform, I've gotten a bad relationship. These are parts of my story that I testify every single day. I really believe that those things make me this mirror for other people. When they look at me, they're like, whoa, if he can do it, I can too. That's what I love about it so much. That was the big switch for me too. It's When I used to hate what I saw in the mirror because of all these things that people called me and threw upon me, and I took as truth. Now I'm using them as like a way to like what I see in the mirror. And then not only that, but show people my scars. And they're like, I can relate to you. That's what makes it so ironic to me. It's like I used to feel such distance from the mirror, and now my mirror leads to more connections.
How do you feel about hazelnut coffee?
Hazelnut coffee? I have actually a peanut allergy. I can't even eat anything hazelnut. And I don't drink coffee either. I drink energy drinks. So they're not sponsoring me to say this, but I like Ghost Energy. So I drink this. That's the most caffeine I ever have in my life, ever.
So you've never even had like cashews?
No, what? I would go into like, what's that called?
Anaphylactic shock. Yeah, I think that's what it's called.
I would not be here. I would not be here at all.
So my favorite flavor of coffee is hazelnut coffee.
Ooh.
I'll let you determine if he's a good friend or not. But I had someone say to me a number of years back, Neil, you're like hazelnut coffee. Not everyone's going to like you. You're not everyone's favorite flavor. In fact, if I was hazelnut coffee and you ingested me, you enjoyed me as a beverage at the table, you would probably die if you didn't have your EpiPen nearby.
Yeah, most definitely.
So I can bring life, if I'm hazelnut coffee, in the sense of me physically being hazelnut coffee, I can bring life or death to you.
Yeah.
If people had that mindset, if you had that mindset every day you stepped out of the house, I'm bringing life, not hazelnut coffee, or I'm bringing death, in your case, hazelnut coffee. How did you get to maybe that mindset of realizing that every day? Or have you gotten there yet?
I believe I've gotten there in a separate way. I feel like even in your example, whether or not you bring life or death to me, it's not your fault because you didn't give me my peanut allergy. You didn't give me that. You just hazelnut coffee. You are your hazelnut coffee. I haven't even seen hazelnut coffee. That's how far I've removed from it. But even that's not your responsibility. And I used to think if someone didn't like me, it's my fault. If they don't like me, it's because I have spots on my hand. No, if they don't like me, it's because they probably don't like white people. That's their problem. That's their problem. That's not my problem. That's not my problem at all. When I talk to students, specifically middle school, because we all know that middle school is a very rough series of years for anybody. You know, you go through puberty, your body's changing, your mind's changing, you're getting your first whatever. So it's like you're going through all these things and you tend to feel like you're the only one. That's where the shame starts. Tend to think everyone else has it well put together but you. But I always tell young kids who say, oh my gosh, I have no friends or no one likes me. I say, well, I'm gonna tell you a secret. Secretly, they don't like themselves. They don't like themselves. We project onto others what we fail to look like except in the mirror. I don't like the fact that I'm not 6 feet tall. Well, anyone who's 6 feet tall, you tall tree looking mother effer. Like I'm gonna point at you because I don't like you because I don't like myself. I had this kindergarten teacher that told me this very interesting thing. It was like when you point at somebody, you have three fingers pointing back at you. And I love that because it's so powerful that like when people don't like us, we have to realize they're pointing a finger at us. But in reality, it's the things they don't like about themselves. So that helped me make that switch.
Is the struggle we still don't realize we really were enough?
Yeah, that's what I always say. I wear it. My merch. I have hoodies that say you were always enough. Students ask me that question of how do I know I'm enough? Or like, what do I do if I don't feel enough? And it's not a binary answer. It's not on October 5th, 2027, you're going to realize I'm enough now. No, it's actually acknowledging that you're going to have seasons and days where you, like you said in the beginning of our conversation, where you don't feel enough, where you don't feel like you are loved. You're human. We're not machines. You're going to sway back and forth. The change is being able to acknowledge that this feeling does not last forever because you experience the other side. Now, for me, how I kind of tell that to students, because it's harder for younger kids to get that without the life experience. What if you were to write down everything you've accomplished in your life, whether it's getting a third grade participation soccer trophy, all the way to like you getting into your dream college, or you getting the courage to ask the boy, girl out, or maybe you were just a good brother or sister. Like write down all these things concretely, because when you don't feel enough, because your brain feels like it lacks the evidence to prove the opposite of you are enough. And when you look at this list, it's almost like you're taking those negative thoughts and you're bringing it to trial. And you're like, no, I got evidence that I'm enough. I got evidence that these things, I can do these things. And not to say that external success is to fill this internal void. Sometimes we need these external things to remind ourselves that we did do those things. Sometimes we have this funny way of forgetting when we have these negative thoughts. So that's how I kind of help students practically manage those negative emotions. Your brain is really trying to always protect you, and it's looking for ways to prove these negative core beliefs to be true. But why not challenge them with concrete evidence? And that's why I offer that practical tool.
Love that. Well, Wes, how can someone get connected with you? Is there a social media of choice you love to hang out on? And then let's play a game together.
Yeah. So you can find me on anything at Wes Woodson. So WESWOOD as in dog, SON. Come to my website if you wanted to write me a letter. I like receiving letters from people who I come across. So you just go to weswoodson.com and there's a green button that says Dear Wes. And write me a letter. I'd love to hear your story as much as you heard mine. But come hang out.
Nice. And is there a social media you love the most, or are you just kind of everywhere?
I'm everywhere, but I love Instagram. So come follow me on Instagram at Wes Woodson. You're going to see pictures of me and my fiance's cat that we share, my fascination for mango lemonade. You're going to see a whole bunch of stuff that I love sharing on Instagram. So come hang on Instagram with me.
Mango lemonade?
Oh, I'll put you on. Mango lemonade, brother. Oh my gosh. What? Tastes like summer on a winter afternoon. Like, I promise you, it is so good. It might sound disgusting. It's amazing. My fiance put me onto it, and I have not stopped drinking. I had some this morning before this whole call. I love it. Try it. Try it.
I can't help but notice something in your background that's been challenging me the whole time. You have some G.I. Joes behind you in little plastic containers still. Yep.
Yes.
I see those. Yep.
Yes, I'm trying to get into collecting. My therapist recommended that I do things that I did in my childhood. So when I'm in Boston, we have this gas station called the Hess gasoline, and they come out with these like Hess trucks every Christmas. So I would collect them as a kid. I used to also collect action figures. So G.I. Joe's is I love G.I. Joe's. So right now I have Snake Eyes, and he's in the original packaging. I found this like retro comic book store near my house. So I got the original comic book from I think the 70s, and then Snake Eyes in his packaging. And I keep it hung up. My fiance did that for me when I was gone on the road, and I love it.
So G.I. Joe, I don't know if you know, has this amazing tagline that G.I. Joe, knowing is half the battle.
Love that.
But I bring that about. We know how the battle should be won. Mm-hmm. And we know the battle is in our minds first. And then it translates down that fictitious highway to our heart. Mm-hmm. Our heart can give us wrong directions and get us off course. If we can control our mind and our thoughts, how would that affect you if you could just get a hold on your mind and your thoughts? Again, it translates down to your heart, or is it vice versa?
I feel like I'm going to take a detour with this question, because I feel like it's my friend asked me this question of would you want a life without pain? Would you want a life without struggle? And my spiritual answer is no. Well, I wouldn't, because I think the pain is further evidence of not our own demise, but our own limits, and which would then encourage us to believe in something bigger than ourselves. So I don't believe in having these sense of no pain, because if I live life with no pain, I don't believe life would be better. Secondly, how that relates to your question, I never preach control. I always preach coexistence. The ability to objectively observe your thoughts as opposed to over internalizing with them. That's the real power. I don't believe if you see a negative thought coming, it's oh, no, I don't want to think that. Well, you're robbing yourself of an opportunity to become self-aware. I tend to say, all right, what is this negative thought really trying to say right now? Sometimes we just think things just to think things. Our brain is just wired like that. They still are learning new things about the brain yearly. Instead of me trying to control it and be on some type A and micromanage all my thoughts and feelings, why not try to be objective observers? How can I be all right, this thought came up, it created this emotion. Now, this is very logical, right? I'm not saying this is something that everyone can do on day one. It does take time and practice, but I never preach control. I rather preach coexistence. How can we coexist with the thoughts and the feelings to then create better actions, which will fuel better thoughts worth thinking? That's what I preach.
I love it. Here is our game. It's called Heal Hustle. So here we go.
It's now that time in the show to play the fastest growing game in the podcast world. We call it Heal Hustle. Today our guest will try to answer all 6 of these questions in 60 seconds or less to win a prize from our prize closet. Audience, feel free to play at home. Let's put 60 seconds on that clock Ready, set, hustle!
The game begins in 3, 2, 1.
One person you could trade places with for a week.
Jesus Christ.
Who is it?
Jesus Christ. Jesus.
Oh, Jesus. All right. Guilty pleasure.
Netflix.
Best compliment you've ever received.
My creativity.
Nice. Worst piece of advice you've ever received.
Just get over it.
What's something you wish you were better at?
Organization.
What's something that never fails to make you laugh?
People farting.
Well done, my friend. Well done. So good. All right.
That was cool.
It was fun?
That was cool.
It's just
That was fun. That was fun.
little fun thing we do
Did
at
I
the
win?
end. Yeah, sure. You're the big winner. Yay! Winner! Winner. No loser today. No loser today. All right. Well, Wes, thank you. Truly. I'm so glad that Sean sent you our way. You even know Mike. You know all the fun. I feel like we know all the same people now.
I know. We're in the club. I was on Mike's show, and I'm now on your show. And if Sean starts a show, I'll go on Sean's show too.
Sean should start a show, right?
He needs to. I told him he needs to write a book because after hearing your episode, I was in where was I? I was in Seattle, Washington last week, and I was listening to the episode. I was just like, Sean, bro, you gotta write a book. I told him that. I'm like, you need to write a book. Like this interview was just so good. You need to write a book. So I'm trying to encourage him.
Let's all work together on that. The collective three amigos with the fourth musketeer on board, right?
I love that.
Well, seriously though, Wes, thanks so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you and all that you shared and all that you gave. Last thought would go to you. What would you want someone to hear?
That the world is better and brighter because you are in it. In every room that you walk into, whether it is a boardroom, whether it is a conference room, whether it is your family room, is better because you are here. I am a firm believer of that message.
That's good. All right, guys and gals, kids and campers alike, guess what? That's it. That's all. That is, in fact, our show today. So here's my question to leave you with. How is that working for you? Well, what do I mean by how is it working for you? How is that bowl, that glass, that cup? It's still working for you, right? All those things that I just mentioned, yeah, those are working for you still, I hope. Okay. How is that self-talk working for you today? How is that body image talk going for you today? How's that? Is that still serving you? Is that still being a part of your life? I'm working on a season for next year. I know. We're only in November. It's never too early to start, though. I'm working on a season for next year. I haven't really figured it out yet, but it's going to involve, I think, a list. More to come on that. Before we go, remember this. You are enough. You are valued, and you are really appreciated. Have you tried saying that this week to yourself? Let me know if you have. I'd love to know. OPSpodcast.com is a great place to let me know. You can let us know on the socials at OPS Podcast Show under Facebook, Instagram, and X. And don't forget this when we go. So important. Remember, when you walk in other people's shoes, you really do get a different perspective on life. Thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned till next week when guess what? That's right. We're going to walk in other people's shoes.